Alright, this is how a girl almost died because of me. Okay, so before I hop into the video, as always, thank you for coming to my page. If you're new, then welcome. And if you're returning, thanks for coming back. Uh, all I ask is if you could like and comment, subscribe, I would appreciate it. Um, yeah, that's basically it. So, without any more jib jabbering, I'll get straight into the story. So, this happened in 2010. So, basically 15 years ago. Alright, so when I got kicked out of high school, they sent we're in a certain district, and there were 4 high schools in the district. Okay, so when we got kicked out, part of the rules was we weren't allowed to go to the same school. Me and my girl that I got caught with. So they sent her to a school called Torrance High, which I actually live pretty close to now, and I get sent to North High. And North High was definitely like the softer. So the only other school was South High, and they didn't want to send me there because they kind of knew that I had some connections there, and it was kind of like a drug type of school, and it's kind of known for that. So they just kind of knew that wasn't gonna be and my ride or die homie got kicked out of school, and he ended up getting sent there. So if me and him were at that school together, it would have been madness, and we probably both would have got kicked out of that school. So she has to go to a school Torrance. I go to the school North. Okay, so we're going to our other schools, and they came up with this whole thing about I wasn't allowed to talk to her, I wasn't allowed to see her up until this certain day. So I tried to abide by that, and we would sneak around or whatever, and or some nights I'd be in my room and she would just show up at my window or whatever. Snuck over to her house a bunch of times, whatever. But that was the main stipulation or whatever. So I had gotten entered into rehab. This was the first time I went to rehab, and they knew that my situation was drug related when I got kicked out of school. So it came as uh, something that I had to do as a part of getting kicked out of the school. And I guess at that time they thought I was going to be coming back, which that never ended up happening. But I think that's what they were thinking. So I end up, I'm in rehab. It's outpatient, but it's intense outpatient where literally you're there from 4 o'clock in the afternoon till 9:30 at night, 4 out of the 5 days of the week, and then you have to go on Saturday. It's one of those things where you go, and as you go, there's phases, and there's intense phase, and then there's a different phase after a couple weeks, and then there's another one where you come even less, and then finally you just stop coming, and that shit. So I remember I was sitting there inside a rehab. I'm sitting there, and we could have our phones and all that stuff. It was pretty laid back, and I remember I got a call from this number, and I didn't recognize the number, but it had the same area code. So I picked it up, and I pick it up, and it's this kid, and he's maybe a year or two younger than I am, and he lives very close to kind of where we go to like he lived very close to the area where like everybody lived, like where we would ride our bikes to walk to school from, like that little intersection right there. So I pick up and it's this kid and his name is Michael Sosa. I still remember, and he's like, "Hey man," and he just gets straight to it. He says, "Yo," he's like, "I just saw your girlfriend get ran over by a car," and I was like, "Wait, what?" And he was like, "Yeah, dude, it was bad. Like it was really bad. Like she like got like straight up ran over by the car." And I was like, "Oh shit." And like, and I just went out into the hallway and took that phone call. So I come back in and I'm just like tripping out, like damn, what the fuck? And you know, I'm like I don't even know what to do with myself. Like he's like explaining how the paramedics had to come and they had to come, like they had to shut down the intersection and they had to get her and they took her straight to the hospital. So like I'm trying to get a hold of people, which was hard because we got kicked out for having sex at school together. So like we're not exactly at the top of their parents' fucking Christmas card list. Do you feel me? And I wasn't like that even before all that happened. I could have had a 4.0 GPA and been like the fucking valedictorian. They still would have hated me like exactly the same. It didn't even matter. Like it's crazy. So like what I ended up finding out happening was she was getting, like, her parents were divorced, so her mom lived like a couple blocks away from where I lived, and her dad lived all the way in fucking San Pedro. And her dad was a douchebag. I tried to fight him actually, like when we got kicked out, because he was like, "Where's he at? Where's he at?" And I was all barred out, so I was like, "Yo, I'm right here," and like I was ready, like I was down at the moment. At the moment, I was down. Remember, I was like 15. So, anyways, he's picking her up, and he picks her up, and like he definitely was like, he was just such a dick. Like he's just like not a nice person. So they get into an argument, and somehow I come up in the situation, and because me and her had actually hung out that day, because even though I was in rehab, it was when I first started, and I had the brilliant idea of, well, if I just keep smoking, like, how are they gonna know? Like, what if it's just in my system for a really long time? And that didn't exactly work out, like, because I actually got tested on a day that I smoked. So, like, I remember they brought me into another room and they were like, your levels are off the charts. But it lined up perfectly with this event happening with my ex. So, they actually didn't start my days over or anything, which is probably illegal or something, but whatever. That guy who ran that shit died anyways. He overdosed, so, and I don't feel any type of way about it. That guy was a manipulative ass motherfucker. So, anyways, I find out that, like, that was the main thing, was, like, they were talking about me, and they were talking about, like, how she used to be one way, and then now, like, he doesn't know who she is anymore after she started hanging out with me, and she's ditching class, and like a lot of the stuff she was doing on her own, man. Like I wasn't over here like, yo, let's go do this and get into trouble and blah 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 blah. Like we had bad luck. Like we definitely had bad luck of like getting caught together in like places or whatever, but like it wasn't anything like, yo, I'm gonna go rob this person, you be the getaway driver or something like that. Like wasn't like that at all. But still, like it was one of those things, I think, for sure. And like I don't understand this, but women do. It's like her dad hating me, like I feel like that made her like me more. And maybe I'm crazy, but I know that that's a thing with women, that like it's like, I don't know if it's to piss the dad off even more, or it makes the guy more attractive or whatever, but I had a feeling that that's what was going on, you know. And yeah, you know, because I was selling weed, you know, like I wasn't doing anything crazy. I was just selling weed, literally. I mean, maybe some ecstasy and Xanax too, but like that was like nothing. Weed was like the main thing at that time. So I find out that like that's what sparked the whole thing, was saying that it was me, that I was the person that came around and I changed everything, and he doesn't recognize her anymore and all this shit. So she, like, you know, I don't know how high she was. I mean, we didn't smoke like a lot, but fuck, man. She ended up like, her dad was yelling so bad that she just decided to open the door of the car and just get out of the car while it was moving. Well, as we all know, you probably should never do that. So when she does that, she gets out of the car and immediately loses her footing, and she gets straight ran over by another, it might have been a Hummer, or it was some kind of like car that was like pretty big, okay? It ran her over, and you know, that's when I get the call from the guy that lived like right, like he lived right there on the other, like on that street, just right there. So he was like, you know, calls me, hey, she got hit by a car right outside my house. They're taking her into the stretcher right now. Like, I just thought that you would want to know. And I was like, yeah, thank you. And like this kid, like he was in middle school still. Like when this happened, like he was like an eighth grader or something. He was just a kid that, you know, I had met him in middle school, and he was like all right of a kid. So, you know, it was just like whatever. But it was cool that he like filled me in on that. So get like fast forward to like, I'm like starting at North because I have to start at my new school, and her shit changed because of her situation. She was in the hospital for weeks, if not months, with internal bleeding. She broke her pelvis. She broke her leg. Like she was really messed up, and finally her, like, because I had been saying I wanted to go see her, right? So I'm asking to go see her. I'm explaining, hey, like, I haven't gotten in any trouble, you know, I got people that'll vouch for me that I've been doing good, blah 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 blah. And finally her dad actually like kind of reaches out to me and says like, oh yeah, you could come see her now. And you know, I'm like, shit, all right. And like, I knew she was at Harbor UCLA Hospital, which was like not that far from where I was. So I was like, all right, cool. And I was ready to go. So I go, and when I'm going, like, I'm going up like, I find out what floor, what room, and all this stuff. So I'm going up the elevator, and I get off the elevator, and I'm walking towards the room, and I see, like, you know, the different numbers of the rooms, and I can see that her room is at the very end of the hall. So as I'm walking towards the end of the hall, there's like, it's one of those halls where it has like couches and shit, you know, like a little waiting area. And as I'm walking, I see somebody that's like sitting there that turns around like this, and I look, and it's her fucking dad. And her dad gets up and walks around the couches and gets all up in my face, and he like, he's being like really aggressive, but he's not yelling or anything, but he's being very very aggressive. Remember, I'm fucking 15 years old. This is a grown ass man with like 5 kids, okay? So he's like all up in my face, and he's saying, and like this was not what I was told. I was told like, yeah, you could come see her and say hi to her, like she's awake and blah blah blah. Like that's what I was told. So I got fucking ambushed, and this fool goes, yeah, I want you to know, like, you go in there, I want you to take a good hard look at her, and I want you to see her with all those tubes and all those machines helping her breathe. And I want you to know that this is all your fault. She was not like this because before she met you. This was your fault. Like, she was like my baby and my angel, and now I don't even recognize her. Ever since she started hanging out with you, she's become a stranger to me, and I want you to know and understand that this is 100% your fault. He's like, we were even arguing about you, which made her get out of the car. So I was just like, in my, like, I'm fucking 15. I'm like, God damn, like, I felt pretty shitty, and I go in there, and of course, like, it's bad, man. Like, it was bad. Like, she's fucking, it's like any type of hospital scene you can imagine, basically. Like, there's all the different wires and like braces and like all this stuff, and she's got a leg that's like being held up by a thing, and like, I'm like talking to her like very like gingerly, and it was like, it was cool to see her and all that, but it was just like the guilt trip that her dad laid on me before I went in there. Like, that shit blindsided me, like, straight up. Like, the whole time before that, I was like, oh, I'm gonna see her, I'm gonna get to, like, you know, tell her to stay strong and all this stuff. And he just completely blindsided me to the point where I wanted to fucking just jump out of the fucking eighth story window or something like that. So, yeah, man, like, it was traumatic. Like, there's no other way to put it. Like, when you're 15, like, she literally like looked like she was about to die. Like, she was all wrapped up, everything was wrapped up, and there were scars and like everything. And you know I I know that, like, I remember hanging out with her like later, years down the road, and like, she still didn't even like to talk about it. Like, years and years, and like 10 years down the line later, I like brought it up, and she was like, yeah, I don't talk about that. Like, I guess she has some like marks on her body, that like scars or whatever, and like, but it was still like a sensitive subject fucking 10 years later. So, anyways, yeah, this is the story, man. Like, her, and I was told by the doctors while I was there that like, her internal bleeding was so bad when she got brought in that, like, if she had been like 5 or 10 minutes late, she would have lost too much blood. So like, she got there in the very nick of time. So, I'm fortunate for that. She ended up making a full recovery, and, she was just in my past video about suing the Hawaii Police Department. So, obviously, luckily, she's a really strong person. I can give her that for sure. Um, so, yeah, but that was a situation that I faced when I was fucking 15 years old, man. And, I'm not still holding on to it, I did for a while, and, I did therapy and other shit that explains that, it's not my fault, and, I've worked through it over time. But there was a good while where I was just like, man, I'm such a piece of shit. And, like, sometimes I still do feel like that, I'm not gonna lie. But, like, I just know that I've been taught that, like, hey, like, you got blamed for something, like, you didn't have control of this or that or whatever. And it's easy to point the finger at me, but, it's more logical when I stop and think about it, that it's not just my fault or whatever. So I might have had something to do with it, sure, but at the end of the day, people are people. They're going to do what they're going to do. So I didn't hold a gun to anybody's head and force anybody to do anything or to change or be anything that they're not. I like people to be exactly who they are, regardless of what it is. I can respect that more than someone who's hiding being someone that they're not. Okay. So, anyways, that's my story. I hope you guys enjoy it, and it's not too much of too wordy. So, anyways, there you go. And I will see you guys later. Peace.